This creamy Italian chicken recipe is a couple things. One, it's breaded, but it's also cartel approved, as in drug cartel. Pretty bizarre, crazy story I'll tell in a minute, but growing up in a half Italian-American household, this dish was a sought after dish in my household. My grandma, her go-to recipe to cook for us when we'd be having a bad day, something about it, it's basically my definition for my own family, what our Italian-American comfort food is. This dish represents it absolutely 100%. So I used to cook it a ton back when I was in Coast Guard for all my sailors, right? But in particular, there's one specific time we had, I want to say 30, 35 Central American cartel members on board our ship, detainees we call them. They're essentially prisoners that we'd pick up doing drug interdictions, right? Before I get too much deeper into this story, I'll show you what I'm doing here in the meantime. So I'm gonna start prepping some of our ingredients. I gotta prep our breading station for the chicken. I gotta cut up some onion, and I'm heating up a pan in the background as well as the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. As I was saying, Coast Guard, one of our primary missions is a lot of drug interdictions, right? My ship specifically where I was stationed in California for a while. Our ship would sail up the coast of Central America. We'd pull into a bunch of different countries, Panama, Mexico, etc. But one of the main things we do, which you might have seen on TV or on social media or something, we'd pull over those semi-submersible submarines, chock full of cartel members and a big stash of drugs, basically. You know, they'd be out there for who knows how long trying to get to America and drop off drugs, right? We'd interdict them on the way, they wouldn't be too happy, but one thing they would be happy about, which brings me to my story, is the food we served. They'd eat the same as the crew, right? We'd feed them the same exact stuff. So I'll be honest, I never thought in a million years I would have done it, but it happened. I was able to feed Mexican cartel my grandma's famous garlic chicken recipe. Pretty unique experience though, feeding cartel members my grandma's recipe. It was bizarre. I mean, I wish she would have been alive for me to tell her that it happened, because I think she would have gotten a big kick out of it, to be honest. Also, quick tip, when you're cutting parsley like this, as you notice I'm doing, it's kind of easy, if you have a sharp knife especially, to push down like this on the parsley, and you'll get a bunch. You'll get a little bit of the stems too, but you'll mainly get the leaves off. It's just kind of a quick way to do it. I don't mind the stems too much. A lot of people don't use the stems. Use the stems, all right? It's not that big of a deal. So these cartel members, right? They'd eat the same as the rest of my crew. Some of our guys stand watch on the cartel members, right? When we have them on the top of our ship. They're in like kind of an outdoor, almost garage setup, if you will, on the back of a ship, all chained up and stuff. But anyways, these guards would be watching them, right? Making sure they're not doing anything stupid. It was a pretty surreal moment for me when I'm hearing the guards of the cartel members tell me that all the cartel guys are talking about how good this chicken recipe is. I think my grandma would have really appreciated it and got a kick out of it. But same recipe I'm teaching now for you. I'm super excited for it. Like I said, it's my definition of Italian-American comfort food. Now that we've diced up our onion and we've chopped up some parsley, we're gonna get our breading station set up. I usually use 1 egg per chicken breast, and I've got 2 chicken breasts with me. To crack an egg too, just a quick tip, it's a lot easier to crack it on a flat surface, on the longer side of it, kind of flat. It makes a nice even split. Just pull it apart obviously, drop it in. You can do the old one-hand trick too, or 1 egg in each hand. I used to be able to do it. I don't think I can do it anymore. Give it a good beat until it's a little bit foamy on top. For extra points, look somebody in the eye as you do this. All right, so we want them nice and frothy. We're gonna pour it into, if you got plates like this, that works. If you want to dirty up a bunch of small sheet pans, as you've seen other people do it, if you're making a lot, sure, go that route. Otherwise, don't waste that many dishes. We're gonna set up our station in a row like this to make it a lot easier to manage. The first step, we're gonna do a very light layer of flour just to get that chicken initially coated and ready to absorb some eggs. The third phase is gonna be a mix of flour, breadcrumbs. I like these Italian style breadcrumbs. You hate on me for not using panko, I don't really care. These are tasty, and they're not that expensive. They're easy to find. They do the trick. Key step here is a little Parmesan cheese and zested lemon into this last part of the mixture. All the magic happens in this third step right here. Don't be afraid to use a ton of cheese also. Now you can use lemon or you can not use lemon, but with lemon is much tastier. It really adds a nice little touch to it. Now, when you're zesting a lemon, try not to get the pith, which is, it's just under the yellow layer. So do very, very gentle. So I'll show you what it looks like. So see how you can just see a little bit touch of white? Under this little yellow layer is what's called the pith, and it's really bitter. So try not to over zest, otherwise you're going to get a really bitter flavor to it. Another quick trick is always zest your lemon before you slice it. I've made that mistake before back on my ship. We were using, I don't know, it might have been this recipe, for instance. I can't remember, to be honest, but we're probably using 30, 40 lemons or something like that. And it called for zesting. It also called for juice of that many lemons. But my dumbass cut all the lemons in half before zesting them. And it's very hard to zest a lemon once it's cut in half. If you haven't tried it before, give it a shot just to, I don't know, maybe get a laugh out of it, thinking of me doing that for 30, 40 lemons, but it sucks, so don't do that. So we're gonna zest about, I think only about half this lemon, since I'm only using 2 chicken breasts and 2 little tenderloins, which I'll show you in a minute. Now we're also gonna grate in some garlic here. We're gonna save some for later for our sauce we're gonna make. We'll also hit this third mixture with a little salt and cracked black pepper as well. I've already cleaned up these chicken breasts. I took the skin off, I cut the little pieces of fat off for the most part, and I cleaned up the little tenderloins from each of them. Now, what I like to do, I don't pound them out. I keep them nice and fat like this, because all we're gonna do, we're gonna lightly fry them in the pan with oil and butter, and then we're gonna pop them in the oven. That's where the magic happens, in my opinion. It makes them nice and juicier. Now we've got our mise en place all good to go. We've got our breading station set up, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. Our chicken is gonna go into the flour first, followed by a little bit of eggs, followed by the best part here, which we're gonna toss up before we throw the chicken in, obviously. I've got my pan heating up now. What we're gonna do, we're gonna throw in some olive oil, followed by some butter. We're gonna lightly fry both sides of the chicken. Then we're gonna pop it on a sheet pan, and we're gonna throw it in the oven at 350 until the internal temperature is about 150, 155. Then the carryover cooking will bring it up to 165. Will be, oh man, I can't wait. I'm super excited. Remember to mix up this third part pretty well before we start breading everything. This next part I almost always screw up somehow. It's the wet hand, dry hand method. So one hand is gonna be the wet hand, the other is gonna be the dry hand. So we'll give it a shot, we'll see how it goes. We'll start with the little chicken tenders, and these are just the little chicken tenderloins. We're gonna toss these in a little bit of flour, just a nice light coat. We're gonna toss them in our egg. So now our left hand is gonna be our wet hand. We're gonna toss it in the third and best step. Try to let that egg drip off as best you can. You can throw in a little milk in this mixture too if you'd like. Now use your dry hand to toss up the seasonings on top of the chicken as best you can. If you get them a little wet, no big deal. But basically you don't want to mix up hands, because otherwise you're going to get really clumpy hands and it makes a mess everywhere. It can ruin the consistency a little probably of the chicken. All right, and reset your mixture too, you know, make it nice and even so when you lay that chicken on there, it's hitting it nice and flat as best you can at least. Now for each step, give it a nice shake before it progresses on to the next part. Remember our wet hand, I almost just grabbed it with my dry hand, you see what I mean? I always screw that step up. All right, make sure you get the sides of it too if it's a chunky chicken breast like this one. Slippery sucker. Just try to let it drip off before we lay it down in the third and final. Really make sure it all gets coated nicely. Now, pro tip, if you have the time and you want to do it, after you bread the chicken, you can toss them in the freezer for a little bit, kind of get a little flash freeze on them for 30 minutes to an hour or so uncovered, and it'll make the mixture stick to it that much better before we fry them up. Get a nice layer of olive oil in here. We do the olive oil before the butter because otherwise the butter will burn. Try it a couple different ways, you know. Do it with butter, without butter. You'll probably like the butter method a lot more. We'll crowd the pan a little because, like I said, we don't need them to get super crispy on the outside. I totally forgot to throw in the damn parsley into the mixture, but it's okay. We'll just throw it in the pan, no big deal. We're gonna throw some onions in too. Now I don't do the onions prior to the chicken because we don't really need to, because we're gonna make a little sauce in the same pan afterwards. So we want to give the onions just enough time to let some of their juices get into the chicken, but we don't want to overcook the onions before we start making our sauce. We're only going to do a few minutes on each side of the chicken here. As you can see, it's already getting a nice little crust on it. We don't need it too crispy, but just enough. See, that's a nice even golden brown color. That's perfect right there. We don't want to overcook it in the pan because we want it nice and juicy when we cook it in the oven. Get the rest of our parsley in. I can't believe I forgot the parsley in the third phase. Even though I didn't throw the parsley in that third step in the mixture, it'll come out really good, and that's what I love about cooking. You can screw up, like I screw up all the time in the kitchen. I'm glad I caught it on film that I screwed up. It's going to come out really good still. Some of the best recipes I've made have been by mistake. Now, the bottoms, let's see how they look actually. All right, the bottoms have just a little bit of cookage to them, and that's just what we want. We don't want them that crispy because we want to finish them in the pan. Or sorry, we want to finish them in the oven. We're going to throw in the chicken at an oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. While that chicken is cooking in the oven, we'll start at 5 minutes and we'll temp it and we'll see where it's at. We're going to want to cook that chicken until it's at 150, 155. Take it out. It's going to carry on up to 165. While that chicken cooks, we're going to get working on our sauce. It's actually going to be fun. I've actually never made a sauce for this specific garlic chicken like I'm about to do right now. This is my first time. So we're going to see how it goes. To start, we're going to grate the rest of our fresh garlic into this pan. Take it off the heat a little so it doesn't burn, like I just did. Learn from my mistakes. All right, we're going to hit it with a little more oil. Then we're going to throw in some butter and make a roux in a second here. Oh yeah, those are nice and crispy. A little too crispy, but it's still going to taste really good. All right, we're going to get our butter in next. Now this part we're going to try to do pretty quick so we don't burn it or screw it up too bad, but we'll see how I do. I've already screwed up a couple things. All right, we're going to get our flour in. We're going to make a roux, which means we have to stir it quick with a wooden spoon until it's nice and nutty smelling. I recently did a homemade mac and cheese video where I make a bechamel and make a cheese sauce out of it. This is a little different since we have the onions in it, so it won't be the same porridge or cream of wheat looking mix because these onions are going to get all nice and clumped up. It'll look similar, but a bit different obviously. It's smelling nice and nutty as you can smell through the garlic onion. All right, now we're going to get our milk in. Oh yeah, it's getting nice and clumpy. All right, throw some more milk in. Turn off the heat a little. That's what we're missing is the whisk. All right, see how thick it's getting? We don't want it that thick. We want more milk. see if this comes together. Now we're going to throw in some cheese. I feel like a mad scientist right now. I'm not going to lie. Hopefully this doesn't burn and turn into a complete disaster. We'll see. I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be pretty good. Now we're going to throw in some lemon. Do half a lemon. I'm going to hit it with some pepper. Alright, now it's starting to get a consistency I can get behind. A little nervous at first, but we saved it. It's coming together nicely now. We're going to go ahead and get it off the heat. Keep stirring it up. Oh, it's going to be very good. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not going to lie, I thought I screwed it up at first, but we're looking pretty good right now. Alright, chicken's at 145, so it needs another 2 or 3 minutes or so. Oh man, this chicken smells amazing. Coming right out of the oven, we'll see where we're at. Want to make sure you temp it in the biggest part of all the chicken breasts. Let's see, 158. Alright, so I overcooked it just a little bit. 160, 161, probably be like 162. We're going to hit it with a little pepper. I might have screwed up the sauce a bit, you know. I used a little too much flour and not enough milk, so that's why it's getting all thick like this. This has also been sitting out a while now because I had to take some pictures and stuff for the thumbnail. But it tastes fantastic, and I'm super happy with it. I mean, it's nice and perfectly juicy, this chicken. That's the difference between if I were to have flattened out the chicken, then fried it completely in the pan or oven baked it. That's why it's so much juicier. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to my Helm's Kitchen YouTube channel, and watch another video. I'll link it right over here or over here, wherever it shows up, you know.